This is VK3CSJ in Narre Warren South. Please stand by for this morning's WIA broadcast at 9 a.m. on 1825 kHz in the 160 metre amateur radio band.
From Australia, this is the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
In wireless weather, news, sport and music this week, Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, manager of the WIA VHF UHF Field Days, Peter, VK5DMR from the VKDMR net, John, VK4JPM, has put thoughts from paper to voice. And tune in to W2PH Radio, offering the best in classic rock from the Space Coast in Florida. But wait, there's more, much more in this edition of news from the Wireless Institute of Australia for week commencing Sunday, October 26, 2025, and I'm Editor Graham, VK4BB.
This is VK1WIA. All points of contacts from today's news stories are to be found in print when you read the web editions, www.wia.org.au.
This is Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, manager of the WIA VHF UHF Field Days. Go and check out the VHF UHF Field Days webpage on the WIA website. If you don't already know how to find it, the address is in the text edition of this broadcast. Over on the website there's lots to see, such as a link to the 2025 winter event results, which happen to be on the VK Log Checker website. There's a PDF of the rules for the upcoming 2025 Spring Field Day event to download. I have posted an update on log checking, which is once again automated. You will also find field day dates for 2026. And here's the revelation, folks, from next year. All VHF UHF field day events are on specific weekends. No more algorithm. And they're not too different from the past, except for the spring event. I explain it all in detail. This has been Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, for VK1WIA News. Back to you, Kempy.
Thanks, Roger. Now, still to come in this week's ham news, the one you can trust, Jim Meacham, Jeremy Boot, and putting words into action, here is John Mazel's VK4JPM.
I've been thinking. When I finally moved to VK4 a year ago, the first thing I did on Sunday morning was tune across the bands to get my fill of local and club news, just as I'd experienced in VK2 and VK3 before that. I expected local news to follow national news. And what did I find? Crickets. I couldn't believe that so little could be happening or that nobody had anything to say. Well, nobody, that is, except for Jeff Emery, VK4ZPP. Every week, without fail, for more years than anyone can remember, Jeff faithfully graced us with a teased-out topic and finished with the words, "That's what I think. How about you?" His passion encouraged me to listen. In my opinion, Jeff's unfailing presence performed two really important services. Firstly, he kept Q News and the airwaves from going silent, and then by being there, he encouraged others to follow occasionally with a club contribution. I sent Jeff a couple of notes. We never managed to connect properly, so he probably didn't realise how much he influenced what I've been doing for my club. In September, Jeff's Q News contribution didn't happen for 2 weeks. We all noticed, and then in early October we received news that he'd become silent key. Vale Jeff. I believe the weekly amateur radio broadcast is seriously important to the survival of our hobby. And if you're a club officer, here's a thought. The fastest way for a club to disappear is if nobody knows that you exist. You can and should prepare and send material to your local news service for broadcast in your state. And if it's information that applies to us all, don't be afraid to submit a piece to national news. Anyway, that's what I think. How about you?
This is Peter, VK5DMR. A timely reminder to all listeners that this Tuesday night is the 28th of October. Is the 9th anniversary of the VK-DMR net. I will call state by state and do several rounds to give everyone a chance to get their call sign in the log. So fire up your local repeater, your hotspot, and even your club radio if you're at your local club. Timings will be as follows. Tasmania, Victoria, ACT and New South Wales will be at 19:30. Queensland at 18:30. South Australia at 1900. Northern Territory at 1800 and West Australia at 1630. So please come and join us on Australia's largest digital amateur network on Talk Group 505 for the 9th anniversary of the VK-DMR net. For VK1WIA News, this has been Peter, VK5DMR.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now with international news, Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello. First up, some good news from Scotland. Amateur radio operator wins planning permission for garden mast. Fife Council has signalled its approval for a retrospective planning application for the installation of a radio mast and antenna at a Cardendon property. Licensed amateur radio operator Alan Bernard had applied for permission for the equipment at his Carden Avenue home. The mast and antenna to the back of the two-storey property will be set at 7 metres high when not in use and raised to 11 metres when it's in operation. It can be brought down to ground level in adverse weather or for maintenance when required. A report by planners said a previous hex beam antenna was put up in 2013 and was at a similar height to the house's ridgeline and was destroyed in a storm in 2016. Imagine you can buy a device and listen in on private conversations, military negotiations, and even intercept important commands for power systems around the world. This is not a scene from a spy movie, but harsh reality. The vulnerability was accidentally discovered by researchers from the University of California and the University of Maryland. For 3 years, they listened in on secret military and private communications. The result was astonishing. Almost half of all satellite transmissions were completely unencrypted. Analysis of the intercepted traffic showed that the following was transmitted over the open airwaves: private phone calls and SMS messages from T-Mobile customers, Wi-Fi data from airplanes, critical commands for managing power grids and oil platforms, military and police reports revealing troop locations and details of secret missions. Yes, Big Brother is listening. We all know how precious copper can be in our antennas and elsewhere in our shacks. Our broadcast colleagues know it too and have suffered in recent years from vandalism and theft involving copper, and it's taken them off the air. Even mains power cabling is a target, and in Brisbane this month police charged 2 men after caught stealing copper wiring from an electrical light box on the Logan motorway at Ellen Grove. In the US, the FCC Commissioner recently called publicly for a tougher response. There is a growing epidemic of attacks on communication sites, and the response needs to include sharper federal penalties and more sophisticated preventative action from the industry, according to the newest commissioner to join the FCC. Olivia Trusty, who was confirmed to the agency in June, called on telecom companies and broadcasters to fortify their sites with tamper-proof housings, cameras and alarms, and said the government must likewise step up the penalties for theft and vandalism. She made her remarks in a video presentation this month at the Telecom Industry Incident Management and Prosecutorial Collaboration Summit in California. The past 2 years have seen a number of high-profile copper thefts in the United States, disabling internet and television services and knocking broadcast stations off the air. For some stations, the result was tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage, with the US Department of Homeland Security calling communication systems a top infrastructure sector. A bipartisan measure has been introduced in Congress to address these concerns. It's known as the Stopping the Theft and Destruction of Broadband Act of 2025 and was introduced by a Democrat and a Republican lawmaker with support from the industry. West Bengal Radio Club do it again. News in from Kolkata. The ham radio enthusiasts in the state have been instrumental in successfully uniting a Nepali woman trafficked in Uttar Pradesh back with her husband. One Sujoy Ghosh, resident of Kasbah in Kolkata, had found the woman moving aimlessly during his recent visit to Uttar Pradesh. Hearing the woman speaking incoherently, he suspected something was wrong and sought help, including that from the West Bengal Radio Club, the organisation for ham radio operators in the state. We made a number of video calls and tried to trace her address. After much difficulty, we understood that she was speaking in Nepali. We contacted the office of the Nepal Consulate in Kolkata, as well as the Indian Embassy in Kathmandu, and after an extensive search we traced her address, said M. Barishnak Biswa, Secretary of WBRC. Approximately 550 employees of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, will be laid off, according to an announcement made on the agency's website October 13. The news comes in the midst of an ongoing US government shutdown and the looming threat of the single largest funding reduction in NASA's 66-year history. Due to those potential cuts, NASA has been forced to reshape many of its science and space exploration efforts. They include the Psyche asteroid probe, the Europa Clipper, the Dark Matter Hunting Euclid Space Telescope, the Perseverance Mars rover, and of course the Deep Space Network, the international array of antennas used to communicate with humanity's spacefaring robotic explorers. And finally, something a little different. W2PH Radio, offering the best in classic rock from the Space Coast in Florida. W2PH Radio is a premier internet radio station featuring classic rock oldies and 24/7 streaming 192K HD stereo, along with scheduled programs on amateur radio. How can we hear it? Tune to www.w2phradio.com. This kind of reminds me of our editor Graham's radio playlist on his ROJ Rock of Jimboomba Spotify site. Okay, and the playlist is at the text link in this week's news. For WIA National News in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
We are VK1WIA. Now, operational news with VK4FUQ. Felix.
Hello there. CQ Worldwide DXSSB Contest 25-26 October. Yes, the CQ Worldwide DXSSB Contest starts at 0000 hours UTC Saturday the 25th and runs until 23:59 hours UTC on Sunday the 26th of October. Using SSB on the 160 to 10 metre bands where contests are permitted, the exchange is Signal Report and CQ Zone. Yoda Contest December. The Fisher's Coast Amateur Radio Club are hosting the inaugural VK Yoda Contest the entire month of December. Then just 3 days from the end of what we call the VK Yoda Contest comes round 3 of the Yoda Contest organised by the IAA Region 1 Youth Working Group in cooperation with the Hungarian Amateur Radio Society, December 29. A great way to gain extra contacts for the VK contest organised by Fisher's Ghost Day Art Club. Now let's open the DX window to the world, October. Amateur Trio plans Maldives Wet Squares activation. If you like hunting grid squares or want something different, you may want to try getting your feet wet, in a manner of speaking, by chasing these stations activating so-called wet squares. We have those details from New Zealand's Jim Meacham, ZL2BHF.
Operational plans are underway to activate around the Maldives, but don't expect to log any contacts from islands on the air locations. The grid squares for 8Q7OS are being activated as wet squares during an ocean diving safari led by Sergei R9OOF with Maria UB9OGC and Dmitry UB9OFY. Listen for the call signs 8Q7OS/MM, 8Q7DD/MM and 8Q7MD/MM from the 26th of October through to the 2nd of November. They will be on the air using SSB on 20, 17, 15 and 10 metres. During this not uncommon way to combine boating adventure with amateur radio, the hams won't just be fishing for QSOs, but diving for recreation from a chartered yacht. This is Jim Meacham, ZL2BHF.
So if the Maldives archipelago is on your list of all-time new ones, Sergio writes on his page on QRZ.com that you're bound to be disappointed. He wrote, quote, "I am not on air from any islands," end quote. RI1ANI is a call sign issued to Alex, UG1A, for his operation during the 2025-2026 Antarctic season. He is at Progress Station now until December 5, then at Rostov Station from 20th December. Commemorating the centenary of the International Amateur Radio Union, Special Event Station V84 SRU is on all bands and modes from the 24th of October to the 26th of November. QSL direct only to the address shown in the text edition or the video edition of this week's WIA National News. When Murphy strikes, the team on Manukinu Atoll OC014, North Cook Islands, was forced to go QRT October 14, which was much earlier than planned. It was a Murphy-stricken expedition. Just 12 hours after the start of the activity, the solar plant experienced a drop in voltage and the backup generator did not start, resulting in a power outage that lasted several hours. Over the next few days, a power strip failed. One radio stopped working. High power bandpass fillers per 17 and 12 metres failed and had to be taken out of line. Finally, another power outage occurred in the local early hours of 14 October. A technician came to start the backup generator and went home. But at some point, the generator and the building caught fire and burned down. The village itself will be without power for the next 3 to 4 months. And going QRT from Operational News this week, I'm Felix VK4FUQ Inningham.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. Now, Special Interest Group News. We are VK1WIA.
Hi, I'm Graham, VK3GRK, this week for Bruce, who still seems to be missing somewhere, with Worldwide Special Interest Group News. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Astronomy and Wireless Weather. NJIT researchers and ham radio operators partner to track impact of space weather. Researchers from 4 universities, including New Jersey Institute of Technology, are expanding a network of ham radio operators in North America to better track how the Earth's upper atmosphere is impacted by natural phenomena such as geomagnetic storms and lightning. The researchers are also upgrading the equipment that the operators use to record data. The goal is twofold: extend the footprint of the network and produce more refined data. And that data, in turn, will help scientists and their students better understand how those phenomena cause breakdowns in satellite transmission or emergency communications. Ultimately, that could enable them to predict such breakdowns in advance. Swarm reveals growing weak spot in Earth's magnetic field. Using 11 years of magnetic field measurements from the European Space Agency's Swarm satellite constellation, scientists have discovered that the weak region in Earth's magnetic field over the South Atlantic, known as the South Atlantic Anomaly, has expanded by an area nearly half the size of continental Europe since 2014. Earth's magnetic field is vital to life on our planet. It is a complex and dynamic force that protects us from cosmic radiation and charged particles from the Sun. The weak field South Atlantic anomaly was first identified southeast of South America back in the 19th century. The South Atlantic anomaly is not just a single block, says lead author Chris Finlay, Professor of Geomagnetism at the Technical University of Denmark. It's changing differently towards Africa than it is near South America. There's something special happening in this region that is causing the field to weaken in a more intense way. Worldwide Special Interest Group's final frontier. Is low Earth orbit getting too crowded? Hundreds of satellites may soon be flying in orbital regions that are already too packed to allow safe and long-term operations, a new study suggests. The study found that while in 2019 only 0.2% of satellites in Earth orbit were forced to perform more than 10 collision avoidance manoeuvres per month, that percentage had risen sevenfold by early 2025. It means that some 340 satellites spend a lot of time dodging debris and other spacecraft. Moreover, the satellite population is set to keep growing. While in 2019, about 13,700 objects, including space junk, zoomed around the planet in low Earth orbit at altitudes below 2,000 kilometres. That number has since risen to 24,185 objects in 2025, an increase of 76%, according to the study. By the end of this decade, some 70,000 satellites may reside in low Earth orbit, according to industry growth predictions. A constellation of classified defence satellites built by SpaceX is emitting a mysterious signal that may violate international standards. Satellites associated with the Starshield satellite network appear to be transmitting to the Earth on frequencies normally used for sending commands from Earth to satellites in space. The use of those frequencies to downlink data runs counter to standards set by the International Telecommunications Union. Starshield's unusual transmissions have the potential to interfere with other scientific and commercial satellites, warned Scott Tilley, Victor Alpha 7 Lima Foxtrot, an amateur satellite tracker in Canada, who first spotted the signals. Worldwide Special Interest Group's Islands on the Air. Phil, Charlie 21 Tango Sierra, is active on the island of Nauru, Oscar Charlie 031, until the 30th of November. The station is spotted regularly using FT8 on the HF bands, QSL via Logbook of the World or OQRS. See QIZ.com for more information. Active is Victor Yankee 0 Zulu Oscar Oscar from Coral Harbour on Southampton Island, November Alpha 007, until the 18th of December. Listen for the station on the 80 to 10 metre bands using CW and single sideband. QSL via Victor Echo 2 X-Ray Bravo. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Medical. Amateur radio is for everyone, as we know, but not everyone has the same access to what they need to succeed. Some operators, or those who wish to get their licence, have disabilities that can get in their way. Jeremy Boot, Gulf 4 November Juliet Hotel, reporting for Newsline, tells us about an effort to shine the spotlight on this situation and the need for change.
One of the greatest challenges of amateur radio ought to be getting a RADIX, logging an all-time new one or mastering a new skill or operating mode. It should not be the act of trying to get on the air itself. To ensure that radio amateurs with disabilities have the same chance at all the other challenges and adventures, the Programme for Disabled Radio Amateurs in IARU Region 1 is encouraging a celebration on and off the air to reflect ham radio's welcoming spirit. This event will take place on the 3rd of December, which the United Nations has declared to be the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. In an announcement about the programme, its coordinator, Riri Azrak, OD5RI, encourages ham radio societies to plan awareness events, nets, or special events using a special call sign incorporating the letters PDRA. Hams are also being urged to identify and support disabled radio operators or other persons with disabilities who are seeking their licence. He wrote, quote, "Together we can demonstrate that amateur radio truly belongs to everyone, regardless of physical or sensory ability," end quote. This is Jeremy Bucci for NJH.
Thanks, Jeremy. Now, Worldwide Special Interest Groups Military. Skynet 1A, where are you? A military spacecraft launched 56 years ago was moved from its orbit and nobody is quite sure who did it or why. In 1969, the UK launched Skynet 1A, a military communications satellite placed in orbit above the east coast of Africa in order to relay information to British armed forces. It stopped working due to hardware issues around 18 months after it started operating, and the spacecraft was left to the laws of physics to orbit the Earth. It is now the oldest UK spacecraft still in space. In the 1970s, when the satellite was still closely tracked, it was in a geostationary arc at a longitude of around 40 east, where it remained when it was decommissioned. Such orbits are subject to gravitational perturbations by the Sun, Earth and Moon. If Skynet 1A had failed at its operational location of around 40 east, we would now expect it to be oscillating by plus or minus 35 degrees either side of 75 east. Satellite system engineer Dr. Stuart Eaves explains in a blog post for the Global Network on Sustainability in Space. Except that it isn't. According to the UK registry, Skynet 1A is currently sitting very close to the bottom of the other well at 105 west, oscillating by just a couple of degrees. So, who moved this bird? Worldwide Special Interest Groups Radio Amateur Young Timers, YOTA, Youngsters on the Air. And today I'm joined by Alan.
Thank you, Graham. Riku Suda JR2KHB, the representative YOTA director for Japan, has posted that earlier this year, YOTA Japan was officially incorporated. They re-established Youngsters on the Air Japan as a non-profitable association which is called, in terms of Japanese law, a general incorporated association. They introduced a membership system and committee to make sure youngsters are the center of their activities. By the incorporation, the membership system and committees, they hope to create more fields where youngsters can be active and have expanded activities. Although here in VK we do not have a WIA director charged with overseeing our YOTA group, the WIA committee has Steve VK6SJ and Keldon VK4KDF in the lead roles. The goal of YOTA is to welcome new and young amateur radio operators to our beautiful hobby. We live in a world where communication is being digitalized in a way we almost can't keep up. In times like this, it's important to convince people about the importance of our hobby. Together with other youngsters all around the world, we can make the difference and give our hobby the future it deserves. YOTA is creating the next generation of amateur radio enthusiasts, bringing new energy into the hobby. Also remember, we have a new VK YOTA contest starting in December. For WIA National News, I'm Alan, VK2COD in Sydney. Now back to you, Graham.
Thanks. And finally, Worldwide Special Interest Groups Rescue Radio. The 47th Chicago Marathon, held on October 12th, featured 55,000 runners from around the world. And for this, a team of 155 amateur radio operators from 6 US states assisted the 2,000 medical personnel volunteering for the event. Amateur radio operators were partnered with the medical teams to help coordinate medical responses, arrange for medical resupplies, and provide situational awareness for the organisers. Medical Communications lead Rob Orr, Kilo 9 Romeo Sierra Tango, said ham radio is important to the event, but it is just one small component to a very complex event that requires 10,000 volunteers to be successful. Ham radio has a unique role and works alongside the other specialty service groups required to support an event of this magnitude. We are grateful to the hams who have shared their expertise, time and resources over the years. This event has shown the public, the city officials and the runners that ham radio is very much alive and doing well. This has been Graham, VK3GRK, for WIA National News.
Finally, it's a date, and clubs are welcome to email text along with audio for this section, much like Kevin, VK4UH, from QTech 2025 has done.
This is Kevin, VK4UH, President of the Brisbane VHF Group and convener of the QTech 2025 conference the 1st and 2nd of November, and is being held at the conference facilities at the Kedron Wavell RSL in Chermside, one of Brisbane's northern suburbs. The theme of this year's conference is "The Future of Amateur Radio is in Your Hands," and the programme includes presentations covering a wide range of aspects of our ever-expanding hobby, from entry-level recruitment and supporting young people in AR, right through to advanced technical advances in equipment and operating. In addition, there will be trade displays and equipment demonstrations, and also arranged an exciting live ARIS telebridge where local high school students will be able to pose questions to the astronauts orbiting aboard the International Space Station via amateur radio. Information and an open invitation to all to participate in this inaugural event have been circulated widely in AR magazine, via this WIA national broadcast, and via a variety of internet sites and other social media outlets. Now, at this time, there are still places available, but this is a final reminder that registration is by online booking only, and that the booking portal will close 48 hours before the event. So for anyone still planning on attending the conference, but who have yet to register, then now is the time. Now, the website for bookings is available for any of the earlier notifications and is also included in the text version of this news item.
Thanks, Kevin. And with that, we'll say, till next we meet, I'm Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.